Welcome to High Octane Leadership with Donald Thompson. This season, we're diving deeper with more solo episodes, where I'll share the experiences that have led to recognition by EY, Forbes, Fast Company, and others. Not as a boast, but as milestones on my entrepreneurial path. From growing multi-million-dollar firms to successful business exits and building high-performance teams with a global perspective. I'll reveal the insights and strategies from my journey and share them with you so that we can win together. Alongside these solo episodes, we'll have industry visionaries and thought leaders, and we'll explore effective leadership. Ready to empower your leadership journey with real success stories? Let's embark on this transformational journey together. I'm joined today by Kurt Merriweather, a distinguished product strategist and marketing expert. As a certified diversity executive, Kurt passionately integrates DEI with technology to build high-performance teams. After 20 years working with global brands like Discovery and AOL, he's leveraged his unique blend of creative thinking and data analysis to co-found the diversity movement. Thank you for coming on. Glad to spend some time with you today, Kurt.
Thank you for having me. We're going to talk about how business leaders can take an organization from zero in revenue to $1 million in revenue. And want to start it at the beginning in terms of how we think about that. And it often begins with starting with vision, starting with strategy around finding your space in the new world you're trying to enter. And so can you describe a moment where you realized your company's vision, what it should be, what it is, and how has that vision evolved over time?
You know, one of the things I try to do personally, and it's helped me be an effective leader, teacher, communicator, is what's the simplest way to understand a complex topic? So when we talk about strategy, vision, mission, all of these different things, there's tons of books on that and ways people describe it. For me, to keep it simple, I have to think about, why do you deserve to exist? Right? And as a business, right? And when I think about that, then the trigger becomes, I deserve to exist because I help C-suite leaders create more employee engagement, which drives the growth of their business. I deserve to exist because I am identifying and bringing to market a new way of learning organizational change constructs through microlearning. So in order for me to get that mental model, right, to then put into a strategy and a mission and vision and all of that stuff, I ask, which is all good, but I ask myself the question, why do I deserve to exist as a business? And then to the degree that I can answer that question from the client's perspective, starts to put me on the road to building a strategy. And I think that dialogue, which you can have with yourself, because one of the things we talk about a lot is, it's great if you have great advisors, consultants, people that are willing to help you, but what do you do and think when you're all alone? Right? And asking that question, I think, is number one. The other thing is, how do you size up and understand the market that you're going to play in? That is, it's almost like, why do you deserve to exist? And in what market, right, are you going to exist and thrive and win? And the way I look at the market, again, I try to keep it very simple, right? Think about this. Are you going to be first, right? Is this idea so new and innovative? Are you going to be the best? Are you going to be the only? Most times it's really difficult to be first, right? Like, that's a pretty big visionary activity, right? But you can be the best and you can be the only, even if competitors look and sound like you. I heard a phrase the other day, riches are in niches. So even if you are in the diversity, equity, inclusion space, even if you are if you're a digital agency, if you are selling a product or a service, right? There are going to be competitors, but what you have to chase is what makes you the best and what makes you the only. And that's what you go to market with and talk about all the time. There may be 7 to 8 characteristics that are similar to your competitor, but you want to have the buying drivers of the two areas where you're the best that allows you to dominate a market. And maybe it is on time to value. Here's what I mean. You may be selling a CRM system, customer relationship management system, for example, right? Or an accounting software that competes with QuickBooks, right? So everybody knows what QuickBooks does, right? It helps you keep your accounts payables together, your accounts receivables together, and push out reports, right? Does your invoicing, all that good stuff, right? Back office technology. Well, what is a way that it can be the best? Well, our technology operates in a mobile platform on a PC and has world-class dashboards for reporting so that all the financial noise is easy for everyone to understand. So your communication of financial information is the best, right? Where are you the only? We're the only package that you can buy at scale that allows you to pay one price. Up to 50 people in your organization can use it, and it is the cost of a cup of coffee. So you may want to be the cost leader. But the key is not any of those examples. It's for you and your business understanding how you're going to be first. Sometimes you are. That's not been my experience in most cases, right? But that's one, best, and then only. And so those are the things that I think about when I'm talking about that initial strategy, right? Why do I deserve to exist? And then where am I going to play? What market? And then within that market, how am I going to be first, best, or only?
And the idea of connecting mission to why do you deserve to exist is important, not only in your go-to-market, but in recruiting the team.
That's right.
Because when you're first getting started, you may not have all the same advantages that larger organizations have. So you may not be leading in terms of the comp you can pay, or the number of vacation days that you can offer, or the richness of your benefits. But you're prioritizing some different things when you're building out the initial team. And so, how do you think about that in terms of who you select for your team when you get started? And how do you convince them that they should come along for the ride in an organization that may not be proven yet?
One of the things that, and I've done this through a lot of different businesses, and one of the reasons I've been able to be successful, I'm the son of a football coach. And so I would hear my dad on the phone. I would go to the recruiting visits when the prospects were on campus and different things, and hear my dad selling the vision of that university, that football program, and why that athlete, their life, their family, their future prospects are better off by choosing, right, the university my dad was representing at the time. And one of the things that I learned is that in any of the presentations that I hear, you always put the prospect at the center of the story. And so when I'm recruiting in a professional basis for any of the companies that I work with, right, I want to let that individual know that not only are they going to be better off, but here's how, right? If you go work at a 10,000 person organization versus our boutique startup, you're going to get more experiences. Your skill set's going to range. And you know what? You're going to get credit for what you deliver because there's nowhere to hide. So if you're looking for an organization where you can get the recognition, the rewards for what you do, you got a chance to get that here versus an organization of 10,000, 20,000, 100,000 people where you're filling out paperwork with what you did good. When you're working with our team, you know what you did good because it's helping serve customers directly and you're seeing an immediate impact on your time, effort, and energy. I talk to leaders that are at one phase of their career and want to lead teams, want to be a CEO, want to work in the venture space. And I link what we're going to do in our mission to what that individual wants personally out of their life. Most organizations are telling the employee about themselves. Our goal in recruiting a what we call our DEI Avengers, I'll use the diversity movement, our current venture, is that individually I want our leaders to have their own movie, have their own shine, be invited to speak, create all the things for their personal brand. And then we all come together right? As the Avengers to change the world. And people that are wanting an adventure are not going to be happy in a bigger organization. So I tell them that. And I tell them, even if you make a bad choice, call me when you hate it enough. Just call me when you hate it. I'm still be here.
Right.
Right. And it's not a function of belittling a larger organization. It just means as a smaller boutique firm, I have to sell the exponential value of what we have to offer. Right. And that sense of adventure, that sense of esprit de corps, that sense of David versus Goliath. There are people, and I mean lots of them, that love that. And it's really a function and a focus of finding the people that want the environment that you're creating. And that's something that I think is critically important when you're building that initial team.
How do you prioritize in terms of attributes that your team needs to have as you're building the organization initially, and how does that start to shift as the organization scales? And so how have you adapted your style in terms of hiring, in terms of who you thought you wanted at the beginning versus who you need as the organization gets bigger?
Yeah. So let me talk about something that this is the I and we, failed miserably. We're doing much better now, and a lot of the credit goes to you. You're heading up our marketing now, and I'm working with our team, and it's really doing great. We did a good job the first couple of years on building our brand. Building your brand is different than building a lead generation marketing infrastructure, right? We won a bunch of awards. Our products are cool. Our thought leadership is top flight. Our educational webinar system. So all the things that went to do with brand growth, we did really well at the Diversity Movement. I'm very, very proud of that. We fell down in the marketing lead generation component and had a lot of turnover in that space. And so I want to share with you all a couple things that I did poorly. There's no other way to describe it, so I'll just kind of get to it without belaboring that. Number one, I made this colossal mistake that entrepreneurs make is you fall in love with a resume chock filled with big company experience because you give the brand IBM, you give the brand Red Hat, you give the brand whatever big company experience this person had, you give them credibility without understanding the barrier between behaviors in an enterprise and behaviors in a startup. And that is a huge mountain for most people to climb. So the one thing that I would have done different in marketing, but across the entire organization, is made sure that people had startup experience, early stage or early stage company experience. So it doesn't have to be ground zero startup, right? But under $5 million business where you really understand what it means to wear multiple hats. You really understand what it means that every day is going to look a little bit different. You really understand the push and pull, right, of a new organization. And so one, I did that wrong. The second thing in our interview process is most things you can test. Not everything, but most things you can test. And so I had to relearn, right, the power of some internal testing before you hire. That's whether the prospect does a presentation, whether they write some sample copy, whether or not they do a presentation on SEO, the difference between link building, between organic SEO or technical SEO, and just explain it in real terms of how they would execute against it versus, right, I got my SEO certificate from XYZ. It's really a function of making people validate what's on the resume. And then the third big thing in terms of hiring the team that I didn't do well is I didn't stick to it. So when I had the first couple of fails on the marketing side, I kind of cobbled together and worked around it with internal folks that I trusted already versus continuing to look for the right solution, the right readiness, the right consultant or consultancy to help us keep moving. And anytime as an organization, when you're going from 0 to 1 million and you get the marketing wrong, it's not going to show up in your first million. It's going to show up in your ability to go from 1 million to 5. And so that's a big thing in terms of building the team. Second thing, or genre. So one was in the marketing example, but the other is that when you pull together a lot of very talented folks from a lot of different backgrounds, you have to spend a lot more time than you think creating your team of one, your team one. So we got good at people operating in their independent silos, but it took us over a year to get our leaders within the organization working strategically together as partners, not tactically together as just coworkers, right? And that cost us time, right? We've succeeded, we've exited, we've done all these things, and we're proud of them. But we're here giving real talk of what we do different. And I dare say that that time of gelling our leadership team cost us probably a year in productivity. That and the marketing miss were two significant misses that are 100% in my court. If I were to do over again as I'm advising other leaders, I'm keeping really close contact on that. But those are two things I would say on building that initial team. Now, you asked how does that change as you grow the business? And this is tough too. 0 to 1 million, you're gunslinging. So you got a team that's like figuring it out and throwing up a presentation in 10 minutes, all good. From 1 million to 5, you have to start adding structure to scale. You have to make sure you have your SOPs. You have to make sure that you have your marketing and branding guides. You have to make sure that the way you write scripts for videos is duplicatable, right? You have to start to think in terms of scale, right? So that most things can operate more on autopilot and don't require new thinking every time. Right. And so those are a couple of things that I learned as we're scaling the team and the business and wish I had done better.
Well, Don, that's not a lead that most people start with when they're talking about their team. Most people talk about how amazing their team is and how they haven't made any mistakes. And so being transparent enough to talk about areas where things didn't go like you wanted them to is, I think, going to resonate with people because there's just not a lot of that out there when people are looking for advice on how to go from 0 to 1 is talking about the missteps. And so you talked about something that's interesting is this, especially as we get into talking about innovation and product development, is this balance between creating structure to scale, but then also being able to take advantage of early opportunities in product development. And so how do you balance those things where you're trying to build a product, but at the same time, you're trying to make money? And so you're trying to go after pilots, but then you're trying to create scalable, repeatable processes where you've got a product that's going to ultimately scale. So that's a tough thing to balance. How do you think about that?
One of the biggest challenges in a small emerging business is that you don't have enough time, money, or attention to do all the things that you need. So prioritization is one of the most critical skills, right? And initially, right, most businesses die from cash flow, lack of cash flow. So I do think from 0 to 1 million, which is what we're talking about primarily right now, from 0 to 1 million, it is about client satisfaction, case studies, and cash. If you have a happy client, you can build a case study. If you have a portfolio of case studies, you can then market against that to get more cash from new customers. And again, I'm talking to those that are more on the self-funded, bootstrapped standpoint, because we were not fortunate enough, right, to whether it was the way we positioned it, whatever, right? But we were trying to raise capital while being Black. And, we raised some money. We raised close to $1 million, but we didn't raise 5 or 10. And you're a bright guy. I've got several businesses under my belt, exit wise. You're an MBA from Stanford. You worked at Procter and Gamble. You worked at AOL and their mergers and acquisition team. So it ain't skill set.
Right.
Our idea is pretty good. We have over 200 clients. We just got acquired. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe I'm just bad at communicating. You know what I mean?
Right.
Maybe that's it. Like,
Right.
I don't know. But what I'm saying is that if you can raise 5 million, 10 million, 20 million bucks, go do it. Got you. That makes sense. You can then talk about burn rate. You can do all this stuff bigger, faster. But a lot of folks, when you're building that credibility in a new space, when you're building that new company, you gotta eat what you kill. And especially that $0 to $1 million, right? And so that means you got to be very, very client focused, right? And that's going to force some pivots. That's going to force some flexibility with clients initially, right? That you're feeling taken advantage of maybe a little bit, but you're not, because you're learning that you're not going to do that with all 100 clients. You're doing that with your first 10, not the 11th one, 12th one, 15th one, 20th one, 30th one. But those first 10 teach you the structural things that you want to apply to the rest of your growth, right? But initially, client satisfaction and repeat business and all that good stuff is going to be critically important.
When you start, PowerPoint slides are amazing, product roadmaps look great, but the reality is that your product strategy usually isn't going to survive contact with OE customers. And so how did you make the pivot or the shift that was critical to scaling, whether it's the diversity movement or other businesses that you've been involved with in terms of that product development shift process?
From a product development standpoint, and thanks for that question, my mentor, Grant, is a product savant. He could pick the product that would win in the market, right? And grow something worth millions of dollars, exit to Adobe. Grow something millions of dollars, exit. Like that was Grant. Grant was a product savant. I am a product leader through sheer hard work, trial and error, lots of error, and then get to the right part. But because I have a sales business development expertise, I end up getting clients to partner with me, that we're in this together. And so now that feedback loop with paying clients is super powerful. And so I think it's important. A couple things that I've seen done well over companies that I've worked with is a lot of companies will bet on a singular product vision. I think you can do that if you're backed up by a ton of money. I think if you're bootstrapping it, you gotta have 3 or 4 ways to win in the marketplace, and then let the client environment tell you which one's gonna stick. Like in our case, for example, we have 10 digital learning tools, basically digital learning courses on all things DEI. We have micro videos that we take that same content and put it in a bite-sized manner. We take that same content that we either put in courses, micro videos, and we put it in TDM library for teams, which is our best practices SaaS-based resource that companies can buy, skin with their logo, their color scheme. And now all of a sudden they've basically got a microsite of DEI information, right? 12 months out of 12 for their team. Well, for us, what we did is we said that the content engine of knowledge was going to be same or similar, but the distribution vehicle would be different. So it may look like we had all these different products, but the reality is we have all these different points of distribution of our knowledge. And that's the decision that we made. So we then could say, all right, we have a content strategy, and we tested that content strategy by having a series of webinars that started out with 25 people attending, 50 people attending. And now each of our webinars average between 300 to 500 participants. Well, that's a great way to test your educational message, your product message, your new product entry. So we did that through educational events. And then the things that were working, that polled well, that people were resonating, we then put those educational items into products, micro content, into products, TDM library, best practices series, into products, micro videos, digital learning tools, right? And that's the way that we did it, so that we could still move quickly. We could pivot different distribution points, but the foundation, right, was high quality DEI educational insights that we developed within our team over the past couple of years, right? And so that was the method, and still is the method, to how we think that we're going to scale. And so now that we're a part of Workplace Options, we're going to now look at globalization of these constructs. And one is we're going to go to French, go to Spanish, and English, right? We're going to look at different geographies and look at, of our content, what percentage of that content stands globally, and then what percentage of the content needs to be localized, specific for a geography, specific for a locale. And so it still gives a scale, but that's the way we've thought about product innovation and initiatives.
There's this blend of the product being so integrated with content that it helps with marketing, it helps with sales. And all those things create this flywheel to create volume. And so that in terms of the product development strategy is powerful. And then that's also had impacts on our sales approach or our go-to-market approach. And so how has our sales approach evolved from the early days of hand-to-hand combat, having individual conversations, to creating a multi-million-dollar organization? And so how do organizations think about making that transition?
Yeah, your initial hires for sales professionals, you're looking for people that have a strong network in the niche you're going after. You're looking at your own personal ability to network, events, right? But really, it is one relationship at a time, right? You're not really talking about scale. And that works to get your first 10 and even for your first 100. But to go from 100 to 1,000, it doesn't work so good, which is where we are now, and which is fine. The key being, when you're thinking about your marketing and sales process and thinking about how to scale it, you use those first 50 to 100 clients as your validation for your vision. So that means it's not just important to have a client that is happy. You need a client that is happy, that's willing to be vocal. So when we go, I was talking to a person the other day and showed them our overview presentation, and they said, "Well, how many of these logos are referenceable?" And I said, "All of them." I said, "We don't show you logos that are not, number one. And then number two, our client success survey showed 94% customer satisfaction." So the way that we decided to market, and when I look at other organizations that have been similar size and scale, when you don't have a huge megaphone, you need to market with happy clients across the board. And so that means in your first 10, you may overdo it a little bit with your clients, right? You may offer a little bit, few more hours than makes sense. You might lose money on a client engagement. Like, whoa, we got to think about the long term, because when you're trying to scale from now 100 clients to 1,000, right? When you're going from 10 to 100, from 100 to 1,000, the number one thing that people look at is who else trusted you. And you want that barometer to be really, really high. And so that's one of the things that it's really important, that you not only work to get the customer, but you overachieve in those initial customer spaces, because that credibility is going to help drive your future growth.
So creating that credibility is something that was really important early on in lots of the things that you've worked on. And in fact, you have spent quite a bit of time building branding for the business, branding for leadership that's involved with the business. And that seems to be unique versus other organizations. And so why was branding so important at the earlier stages, where you see other organizations waiting until they get larger to invest in that brand?
Yeah, I think, Kurt, it's a great question. And why is branding important in a smaller organization? Because how are you building credibility and trust? And you can build a brand based on the talent and the quality and the experience of your team ahead of having 100 clients. So because I recruited well, right, I could show prospects a video clip of our head of business development, Shelley Willingham, on CNBC. I could talk to them about Kurt Merriweather's background at some of the largest enterprise corporations in the world in innovation and product development. I could talk about Jackie Ferguson and the content, the books, the way that we've seized all those things together. I could talk to Bob in terms of publishing and his work at Bank of America, his work publishing 15 books. So if I look at, I could talk about Jamie Osterart and her consulting program and how she was instrumental with companies large and small of linking, right, mission, vision, and values to the day-to-day work that they're doing. So when you have a team of highly credible, highly competent superstars, they become credibility for the products in the business, even when the products in the business aren't done yet. Because people are like, wait a minute, what's going on that this collection of talent has gotten together in a business that's so small? I got to check this out a little bit more. Their vision has to be significant, right? And so you use any points of credibility that you have to amplify so that people are willing to have the next conversation with you. And here's the other thing. You usually have enough good stuff. Don't lie. Don't embellish. Here's the thing. We went from 10 clients to 125 clients in 12 months during our fast growth period, right? I didn't have to say it was 200. From 10 to 100 people trusting us. The truth was good enough. When I had 10 clients, say I have 10 clients, 2 are startups, 2 are service organizations, 1 is a multi-billion-dollar company, blah, blah, blah. Your truth is stronger than you think. You don't have to make it up. You just portray the best you have in the most powerful light. No different than you will on your resume or on your CV, whatever people are calling it now. Like you do that as a company, right? And what you'll find is when you convince self, people ask all the time. They said, Don, who are your top competitors? I was like, I don't mean to be arrogant, but no one's doing what we're doing. No one in the diversity space has the team we have, the products and the technology that we have, and the logos that we have. Now, somebody may have 1, 2, or 3, but not all 3. Because we've created a technology roadmap for diversity, equity, inclusion that people can scale in an affordable way. And we have data analytics that backs up what we do. It's hot. I just tell people that. I was like, so
Right.
I don't know who you think our competitors are, but I ain't found nobody that got what we got. So let me know. Right?
Right.
And it's a function of not arrogance, but we packaged it in a cool way. What we were building was cool. One of the things, I alluded that, maybe we didn't get all the money because we're Black. That's part of it, right? For sure. But it's not all of it. The other part of it is people don't believe what they can't see. So what we should have done better is we should have overinvested in mock-ups. What we did was we went to market telling people the truth. This is where we're at. This is our vision. They want to hear that. Right? We should have invested $50,000 in some highly engaging click-through stuff. Right? So that people could see and feel right ahead of the thing. We were educating people on our process to get there, and they were like, I don't really get it. I'm like, nah, I don't know what you get or not, right? And it's your money. I'm not mad at somebody that this is your money, right? But it's not that you don't get it. It's that most people don't believe what they can't touch and feel. And so that was a big learning in the fundraising standpoint, right? And then quite frankly, in the Southeast and the number of things that we're doing, the topic of diversity, equity, inclusion, right, still means to many people in the investor community that we were talking to, middle-aged white men, that's just what it was, right, means you're having a race conversation. So our concept, this was a little bit too nuanced for people to get immediately. If we had to do it again, we would have said we have a high-performance employee engagement engine. Oh, yeah, I know what employee engagement is. That simple thing would have changed the dialogue 3 years ago because everybody understands employee engagement, right? So again, I want to be really clear. Some of it, my pigmentation wasn't helpful, but some of it is we had something that was a little bit too nuanced and people couldn't get it in a single sentence because we were using terminology that was all over the news. right? We didn't have the opportunity to build our marketing plan against Fox News, against this, that, and the other. And so we were running into some headwinds that if we knew now, then what we know now, we would have just talked about employee engagement engine. And under it, we have surveys. Under it, we have inclusive language. Under it, we have how to microaggressions, and we have these videos, and but we have a map for increasing employee engagement. Oh, yeah. Okay. Right. But you live and learn, you make tons of mistakes, right? You figure stuff out is what I would say.
That was, I was just sitting here reflecting as you were talking about all that. And, we had hundreds of conversations, I think, with potential investors along the way. And, how did you take away, one of the things is difficult is hard to hear no. And there are different flavors of no. And so how do you kind of think through all the different flavors of no and then take those things away that you can actually use to raise money and build the business? So talk a little bit about how to hear no and then what to do with the no's that you hear.
So a couple things. One, the decision to raise money and bootstrap is a difficult one, and you got to be all in or both. And so we ultimately decided to stay more of a bootstrap organization and just sell for our supper. But because whether somebody's going to write a check for 100,000 or a million, like the questions are the same, right? And the amount of time and all of those different things. The no's for me, how do you learn from them? It really depends on the individual, right? Some people just start ghosting you, right? So you can't learn from that, right? Like there's nothing to learn from that. So don't worry about it. They just weren't interested. All good. You got to keep moving. The most challenging ones are people that are super polite. Actually, not the, oh my God, love what you're doing. I mean, you all have really got the market aligned with, I'm so impressed. This operation, what you're doing is just a little outside of our current thesis, but I'm so proud of you all, right? And just like what I call the Hollywood no,
Right.
right? And you can get lost in the Hollywood no because it's so much
Right.
positive,
Oh,
but
wow.
at the end of the day, I'm not giving you a nickel, right?
Right.
The best learnings were, I don't know if you remember the scene in The Godfather where somebody brought the Godfather a deal, and he pulled up close to him and he says, listen, he said, I'm talking to you because I understood you to be a man of respect. I'm going to have to say no to your offer, but let me tell you why. And he talked the guy through why he wasn't going to rock with him, right? We've had several people that did that for us. And those folks we hold in high regard. We learned a lot in terms of our next pitches and are thankful for those. Because those 5 to 7 minutes of folks saying, hey, this is the challenge I would have, right? It being able to greenlight an investment helped us formulate our thinking and helped us get stronger. And so I think it's not how do you work with all the no's. Some of them just don't matter. Don't worry about. It's really those folks that tell you no and give you the insight into why, so that you can determine what you're going to do about that perspective, right, or not. And then the final thing is that talking to as many people as we did reaffirms your commitment. See, when you get a lot of no's, you have to ask, like, okay, after the 15th no, right? Should I be doing what I'm doing with my time? Like that, like are they right? It gives you the opportunity to recommit to what you committed to in the first place, right? And that I think is critical, right? Because if the no's discourage you, that makes you human. If the no's change your work ethic, that makes you not committed enough to win. If the no's discourage you a little bit, that just makes you human. Because if you're taking a lot of no's, like that affect, you're a human, right? But if they change your work ethic, change your commitment to your cause, then you should go get a job. This entrepreneurial thing might be cocktail party cool, but like might not be for you, because you have to have the ability to be the tip of the spear for a long period of time until you hit momentum.
Yeah, that's right. So the idea of what do you really believe, and then those testing your belief in
Yes.
what you're doing.
I'll piggyback. I'll extend on that. Right. You're stress testing your belief system. Right. And that's the most important thing about fundraising.
Right.
Amen to that.
Right. And one of the things that, whether you're going through the presentation and go through all the slides of here's your problem, here's your customer, here are all these other things. One of the things that people, as they're looking at your business, they're thinking about, well, what could impact you in the future? And one of the things that you said powerfully is what you laugh at today could kill you tomorrow. And so you don't want to be Blockbuster, Xerox, and Kodak, and all the other companies that you can think of. And so how do you make sure that you're taking care of today, but you're looking far enough in the future so that you're not going to get damaged by something that you're overlooking?
Oh my gosh. That is one of the critical questions of our time together today, because as an entrepreneur, you have immediate needs, things like payroll, right? Things like ship dates, like you have some very immediate, urgent needs that are in front of you, but you have to make time to look around the hidden corners. You got to take time to network with people in adjacent spaces, different spaces, to really understand the impact, the economy, the election, the different things are going to have on what you're doing from a marketing standpoint, from a messaging standpoint. And so, you know, as a CEO and a business leader, that's why I don't see many people flipping companies that say the reason why we did it is I worked 39.9 hours a week. Right? The folks that are listening to this are emerging leaders, and you want to help change the world, change the landscape of your business. You want to get promoted, you want to go to the C-suite, and that's just a different work ethic that we're rocking with. And I don't apologize for it. There are folks on our team that work 40 hours a week, have great work-life balance, and I want that for people, right? But the goals I have supersede that as a function, right? And that doesn't mean I advocate burnout and I want people to take their PTO when they need it. But like, let me just say this is a pet peeve, but it's practical and it's powerful. You're not working on anything important if you can stop at the same time every day. So you gotta ask yourself, what are you doing for the organization that every day at 4:59 you're done at the same time? So here's a couple things. Number one, you're not working on anything that's super critical, and that can make you mad. That can make you feel however you want. Number two, and this is important, then you're never actually in the zone. When you get in the zone of how you're working on something, if you're writing something, if you're researching something, you lose track of time when you're in the zone. And when you don't ever, if you don't even understand what I'm saying right now, right, you probably shouldn't be starting a business, because the mentality and the mindset of people that are moving the needle inside the enterprise, inside an entrepreneurial venture, right, are outcome focused. And that outcome focus means you're going to lose track of time 3 or 4 times during the day, because you're so dialed into what you got to do, the impact it's going to have on the organization, the impact it's going to have on you for you and your career. Now, when your family needs you, rest. When you have a wellness issue or something at home, take it. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm just saying every day, every week, 50 weeks out of the year, you end at the same time. You got to reflect on that. That's what I'm saying, right? I'm not saying life isn't lifing, right? And you got things with kids or family or different. Like I get all that, and I'm very sensitive to that. I want people to do it, but I'm talking about your daily habits. When you're chasing something, right, you lose track of time, because what you're doing is so impactful to you, to the organization, to your future promotion.
Right. So that idea of you know you clock in at 8:30, take a half hour lunch, and then at 5 o'clock you're done doesn't exist. And there's a quote by I think it's Ben Horowitz, who's part of Andreessen Horowitz. Somebody asked him, "What's it like to run a startup?" He said, "I sleep like a baby. I wake up every 2 hours." That's the challenge. You don't leave it; it's always with you. How do you manage that though? In terms of the qualities you need to manage that well, and work life integration or whatever you want to call it. How do you deal with that? reach out?
Yeah, it's so here's the thing, and I'll tell a story real quick. And a CEO that I work with closely, his name is Jason Gillikin. He runs a company called Earfluence, and they build audiences for podcasters and doing really well at that. And he asked the same question. He said, "Don, I'm really pushing it, right? And they've grown. They haven't quite hit a million, but they're on the way, right? Like it's a couple of clicks away, right? And so he's in the throes of it, right? And I said, well, a couple things that I shared with him that I'll share with our audience is that number one, involve your family in the mission. So early on in my career, when I first became my first CEO stint, it's a company called iCubed, or a technology company, and I was working a lot. And maybe once a month, I would take the kids out to dinner, my family out to dinner, and I'd say the company is buying dinner for us tonight. Like, oh my gosh, where maybe we went to Red Lobster or to whatever, but whatever the kids thought was like amazing, Ruby Tuesdays or something. Then we go and I put it on the company credit card, and you all are a part of this too. And I can't be at every game, and I can't be. You should get some reward for the sacrifices we're all making. I remember one time telling my kids they wanted new furniture in the bonus room. I said, if we make our numbers this quarter, we'll get new furniture. If we don't make our numbers, we're going to have to wait till we do. And every day for 3 months, my son was like, Dad, did you sell something today? I was like, I'm selling enterprise software. I don't sell something every day. He's like, well, I need that furniture in the bonus room. He says, so I'm going to need you to sell something every day. But I made the kids a part of the process. So we shared the rewards, shared the victory, and I talked to them about that sacrifice. And here's a beautiful moment. Sierra, my middle daughter, who went to App State, and now works in Atlanta in video production, just wrote her first film, or produced her first film and all that. Super proud of her. But she says, Dad, do I have a college fund? And this was when she was a senior in school, college, and fill out applications. I was like, no, you don't have a college fund. She was like, well, how am I going to pay for college? And I was like, I'm going to write a check for it. And she said, how much money do you have? And I said, I have enough to write a check for your college. And she said, well, do I have to pay it back? I said, no. She said, well, what do I have to do? And I said, well, you have to have above a B, because I think your all A's are different things. But if you work hard, you should have B's or above as your average, right? You should have above a 3.0. You're smart kid. Stay out of trouble. But other than that, enjoy yourself. And this is your reward for the times that Dad couldn't be at every single event for you. And I don't know what you want for your family, but what I wanted for my kids is the financial security that they could push through in the goals of their life with a little more stability than I had. That didn't mean I wasn't at Sierra's basketball games or different things. It meant I wasn't at every single one of them. It meant I would talk to the kids and I would say, Mariah, David, Diana, like, look, you all got this, and this going on. What are the critical things that just mean the most to you that I'm there? And then I work my schedule around that, because parents as entrepreneurs are dealing with that guilt, right? Of chasing the business, but not be. Look, I don't think you can be everything to everyone all at once. So you have to prioritize and integrate the best you can. And a lot of that is conversations with your spouse, conversations with your kids, and making sure you have a set of friends that get it. Right. And I'm super fortunate in that the majority of my friend group, they may not all be entrepreneurs. Some are doctors, it doesn't, but they're doing something in their work life that matters, that you have to go the extra mile to be good at. No shortcuts. So we understand each other. Like when we can't get together for the game every week, like we get it. And then it makes the time where we do spend together super precious. Right. But I'm surrounded by folks that are chasing a dream, and whatever that is, as an educator, as an entrepreneur, but they're doing it next level. They're not just coasting. And so I also encourage people to have a friend group of people that are chasing a dream. That could be somebody that's building a church. That could be somebody that's building a plumbing company. It doesn't matter what it is. It means that you got friends that are going next level, so they'll relate to you going next level. And they're going to support you, not be naysayers to your dreams and goals, right? You're going to have that cheering section, which I think is super important.
Well, that's a lot to consider, a lot to ponder, all the things you just talked about, but having somebody that you're doing whatever you're doing it for them because you're doing something that's bigger than you. And having people around you that support you is a critical thing to give you the fuel that you need to be able to do what you need to do next. And so what's next for you? What's next for the diversity movement? What's on the horizon? And
yeah, I appreciate the question. 2023, end of 2023, we exited to workplace options. So usually in that first year, you're dealing in heavy integration, getting to know your new team members and new teammates and all of that stuff. And that's going well. I don't think for me, I see myself running another business from the ground up. The thing that makes me smile the most is helping entrepreneurs and dreamers, emerging executives in larger organizations, and teaching them some of the cheat codes that I've learned over the last 30 years. And that makes me smile. Make a little bit of money doing it, trying to figure out how to make more. But I think, 2-3 years from now, I can see myself spending more and more time, whether it's inside a business or on my own, helping emerging leaders hit their stride. Because I've had a lot of experiences, done a lot of good things, done a lot of things that are not amazing, but we're learning opportunities. And it's something that's pretty cool to be able to share that with others and have them utilize what makes sense for them to accelerate their growth. And so for me, I'm not sure exactly what's next. It's a good question, but I don't know how to answer it completely. But I do know that part of it will continue to be building high performance teams and trying to make the workplace right better for all, and that will be encompassed in that in some significant way.
and if there's one nugget you could leave with an aspiring entrepreneur who's trying to build something from the ground up, what would it be?
Failure's your teacher, not your judge. And a lot of times we let failure judge who we are and at that moment in time where we didn't succeed. But if we think about failure as a teacher, we've all had tough teachers, and that's good. Tough coaches. Failure is a tough teacher, but failure is not your judge of who you are and what you can be. Your lowest moment does not dictate the size of your future dreams and accomplishments. And so failure is a teacher, not your judge.
That's awesome. Don, this has been my pleasure to spend some time helping folks to hear your thoughts, your transparent thoughts about your journey, to help them understand how to navigate things and hopefully to shorten the things that they have to experience to get to where they want to go. So thank you so much for being transparent and sharing your insights today.
Thanks for hanging with me, Kurt. It's always fun. We could talk for hours. We're just putting it on tape, which is cool. and I will say to the audience, to you in particular, one of the things that's joyful for me in building businesses is getting to hang out with people like you and you in particular. And I'm better off because we're partners, because we're friends, and we're chasing journeys together. And that's part of the cool thing, right, of building entrepreneurial teams and with great people. Thank you for joining us on High Octane Leadership with Donald Thompson. Today's episode is a step in our collective journey towards leadership excellence. Remember, every story we share and every insight we gain is a piece in the puzzle of our leadership journey. For more insight and detail, hit the subscribe button so that we can stay connected. For deeper information and more episodes, go to donaldthompson.com. Continue to lead with vision and purpose, and until we meet again, embrace your role as a high-octane leader in the ever-evolving world of business.